Thank you so much for deciding to. Thank you for agreeing to participate in today's discussion about the societal impact and the enduring legacy of what I feel is our birthright as HBCU graduates. The film School Daze, released in 1988 and directed by Academy Award-winning director Spike Lee from the class of 1979, as well as of course, I am Spike Lee, as well as of course, A Different World, which is started with William H. Cosby, former college trustee, and then carried on, showrunner by Debbie Allen, which ran for 6 seasons on NBC, and it was a weekly glimpse into the life of an HBCU campus. So we're talking about the enduring legacy of both of those amazing projects and vehicles and properties. And in that vein, I've assembled an amazing group of people to talk about that. We're going to start here in alphabetical order. Sorry, Scoop, you're always going to be last. The alphabetical order, we got Jamal Nadeau, who is a member of the class of 2000. Who is a filmmaker, a writer, producer, executive producer, creator from Los Angeles, California. Hello, Jamal.
What's up, brother? Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. What's up, guys?
Always. Maze Hall, 4th floor.
Right. Buffalo,
yes, sir. Yes, 4th floor Maze.
Right.
Also, entertainer, host, DJ, talk show host, writer, and fathers, of course, both fathers. Father, husband, George 2.0, Albert Peters II from the class of 2003. Hello, George. Thank you so much.
What's up, man?
And if I forgot any of them, I'm sorry. Of any of the hustler, entrepreneur.
No. Just Whitehall freshman year.
There he is. There he is. Whitehall. Okay. Excuse my bad. Whitehall.
Whitehall doesn't get enough. That's all I want to say. Whitehall.
You're right. And Spike lived in Hubert. He said for all 4 years. So wow.
I'm a Hubert Hall man myself.
I knew where I was going.
Floor.
You know what I'm saying? I knew where I was going. So here we are. Here we
Layers.
Layers. You know it. Ooh, we're going to get there. Okay, so layers. And here we are. Kyle Yeldell, host, writer, critic, DC native, host of the Inside Scoop podcast, and a serious critic of media and things of that nature. Hello, Kyle Yeldell, also affectionately known as Scoop. Hello, Scoop.
Hello, brothers. How you doing?
Good. I've not seen this current incarnation of.
This is back to spring 05 here.
It's so DC though.
If you can do it, just do it.
Hey,
it's so luxurious.
It's so great. It's so great.
So much hair.
Yeah.
You and Dell here, so much, and me and George, just so much hair.
Yeah, we're here with you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start with this question. When was the first? What was the first time you all saw? No, excuse me. What was your opinion of the first time you saw the film, either the film School Daze or the television show A Different World? And whoever wants to go at it, please have at it first.
Well, let me say, I'm gonna hop in, Scoop, if you don't mind, just to get it on and shit. You know what I mean? But I'll say this: I remember School Daze, like seeing that for the first time. You know what I'm saying? Man Theater, Pasadena. You know, and I'm gonna be honest. Our preacher, shout out to Ward AME in Los Angeles, recommended the movie. So we go see it. You know what I'm saying? See my mom and everybody. And the first thing you notice, I mean, at that age, is how different it looks. Like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like the lensing. I'm gonna tell you just from a filmmaker's point of view. Like the light.
Dickerson.
Like yes, yeah, all day long. All day long. Like the leader of his classical period. But it's like that's the first thing I noticed. And I'll just say that's a hat off to like craftsmanship. You know what I mean? To being an artist, to coming in on your first major one after your first studio picture and going, you know what? We're gonna do it this way. So I mean, that's my first take was like, what is this? It didn't look like a real movie to me. You know what I mean? And you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying when I first saw it, I saw it and I was like, oh shit, this is a masterpiece. But I saw it and knew that it was different.
Got it.
So your experience, because you got a couple of summers on me. Mm-hmm. Your experience was a little bit different because you saw it in the theater. This is like winter '88 or so. So I'm a pup, and that year a lot of films came out. So Spike had a lot to deal with. Like, you know, there's a lot happening in 88, right?
Right.
And so when you think about the fact that of all the many directions that other filmmakers decided to take, how bold to actually dive in to a demo that most people didn't even know existed, at least didn't know wasn't a monolith. Right. So for me, even at a young age, I grew up in Voorhees, New Jersey, small little hamlet outside of Philly, population white, and then me, Tony, and Jeff Bennett. And like, that was it. So I hadn't even seen this many like Black things happening outside of church and Jack and Jill. So like my culture shock at the time, let's say I saw it a year and a half later, maybe 2 years, because we didn't have VOD. We had home box office. I probably saw it on the VHS or something like
one
that.
HBO, baby. One HBO.
Well, there was one HBO and there was one TV. So, you know, whether we went and rented the video and I had to like sneak it past my folks and wait until after they fell asleep to watch the other one. It was sometime during this young period that I saw it for the first time. And to be honest, at the same time as around, you know, the first book report or, you know, that I did on MLK. And I was like, oh, that's it. Whatever that is, like whatever they're doing there, I immediately felt like I belonged there, and not just belong there because I wanted to soak up, but I knew I wanted to contribute and be a part of whatever that ecosystem was. Yeah. So my first impression was like, oh, there we are, meaning like us, like there we are. How do I get to where we are so I can be we? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I'm as George said, I'm the youngest guy here. So I'm thinking about this in 1988. I was 4 years old. So I actually was more aware of a different world before School Days. And I saw School Days. I remember I probably saw it before, but I remember sitting down and watching it the summer going into college, knowing that was like the litmus test. Like I had to watch that. That was my rite of passage before I went to college, as I was going to an HBCU. I think I'm the opposite in the sense with George is that I grew up in DC, and a part of DC is 99% Black. You know, my family, my dad is the only one of his brothers and sisters that didn't attend HBCU. His brother and sister went to Morgan. His youngest brother went to Morehouse. I grew up in the same city as Howard. None of this was new to me. And in the era of wearing HBCU sweatshirts and T-shirts, like I actually knew the majority of HBCUs before I ever applied for college, just because I remember the T-shirts. Like I could tell you like Miles College, or I could tell you like Lane or Kentucky State. Like I remember seeing the T-shirts a lot growing up here. And so different world was it for me, where I was like, okay, this is something that I'm really interested in, like going to HBCU and having that context in DC. It just furthered what I'd already grew up with. So like you all, like it literally was just an extension of the upbringing that I kind of already had.
Well, I think it's interesting too, and thank you all. I think it's interesting that those are three very different points of view. Mine was not in the theater. So Jamal saw it in the theater. The first time I saw it in the theater was we rented it for like NSO 99 for the class of 03. And it wasn't really it wasn't a theater, but we watched it in King Chapel on a big screen. And I never returned it admission. I never returned it. So when I had to graduate and get my signature about the library, I bought him a DVD, you know, and dropped that off because I never returned that tape. I lost that tape. So, but the first time I actually saw it in a theater as a film was for the 30-year anniversary in 2018 at the Fox Theater, which incidentally the coronation scenes are shot there.
It was there.
Yeah, exactly. Which I didn't, you know, I had no idea.
Everything looks like King Chapel until you know that.
It does. The only gimmick is the roof, like right above
the chairs though too.
And I was, you know, I was trying to justify those crowd shots. Like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? When they back there, like,
it's at the Fox Theater.
I was like, no, that's gotta
how
be
they back like that.
And I presumed it was Davidge. I presumed it was at CAU, and it was like just a building I hadn't been to yet. In my mind,
I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Davidge Auditorium, where things just happen. I mean, and between us, you know, Jamal. I mean, Jamal. So he's got the dual scepter crown. He's Morehouse. You know what I'm saying? But that man is Clark Atlanta as well.
He got busy.
Okay, you already know.
Yeah. So it buttered his bread. But I'm saying all that to say it's just interesting how we all saw it differently. Because I saw it, I had to sneak and watch it as well. And I think the first scene I saw was the step show scene. It was the first scene I saw, and I was like, "What?" I didn't know what I knew what it kind of was, but I didn't know what I was watching. Then I'm like, "Okay, I'm just gonna stick with it and keep rolling." But for a different world. It was an extension of the Cosby Show. The niece had gone to college, and it was HBCU, but there were like white people there, and I in my mother's Jackson State College experience, looking through the yearbooks, I didn't recall white people going to historically black colleges, and so it was like, okay, this is made for TV, but we were all in. I mean, we were early adopters just because it was supposedly a celebration of HBCU life. So to that end, and
but also, can I say also being at such a young age and seeing that, it doesn't make it weird.
No, it is what it is.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's what it is. My mom's Tennessee State, Miss Charm. You know what I'm saying? AKA, you know what I'm saying? But but so I mean, what a credit to that, right? So we're seeing this, and then we're seeing motherfuckers like work it out, like Dwayne Wayne goes into the Peach Pit. And like this motherfucker's announcing
the pit, bro. The pit,
bro. I'm sorry, the pit. He's announcing like, "Yo, just got straight A's." You know what I'm saying? Everyone's.
Oh, that's the thing. Dwayne's book smart.
Perfect 800 on his math SAT,
bro.
That's what we celebrating, though. You know what I mean?
Dwayne is tutoring early.
Yeah, as like a freshman almost.
Come on, bro.
Almost,
yeah. But it was those elements that I think made it so agreeable. Like to both of your points, my mom, my parents were Cheney. My mom was Miss QT. You know what I'm saying? Much to my chagrin. But
drop that.
But the conversation around HBCUs, even with my mom being an educator, was not as well informed until A Different World / School Daze. That actually, there was a resurgence at that time because of their presence and their participation in the zeitgeist. Right now, we have something to really tangibly talk about. Like you had a lot of these schools, obviously, that had graduates that needed to go to those schools in ways that were different than the way we needed. They needed because they were disallowed. They needed because they were disenfranchised. There was a lot around that. But when we saw it, right after watching the Cosby Show, which was already the ideal situation. Here's what we do in order to get to that ideal situation. Oh, you go to an HBCU? Oh, okay. And then for us in particular of the AUC, it being so specifically pointed at the lexicon and the culture of the AU, it was like specifically, we're actually going to go there. Like we actually are going to go to Hillman. It felt like, or a mission. Yeah. Like we're going to those schools.
Right. And having to tell white friends at school, no, these schools aren't like they're not.
I'm not going to Moorhead, bro.
But the crazy thing was to tie them together because they're inextricably linked. To tie them together is that the exterior shot, the exterior scenes shots for A Different World was Spelman College.
Yeah. I see Giles right there. That's what do you mean?
Giles, and then they show Lower Manly.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I mean, like both, like the AUC, like struck gold like twice in a row.
Yeah. In a short window of time.
2 years.
And they're in. I mean, I'm saying this. So this is what I'm thinking. So they struck gold in that period of time, and it's not to say that they weren't already getting great students and things were happening already. But in my admissions hat, I'm thinking, okay, this happens. On the Cosby Show, we see shirts, and we don't know why. After the sweaters, there's these sweatshirts that have these names of schools on them, and either you know them or you don't. But maybe you want to inquire. There's no internet to go look that up at the time. You got to kind of know it, or where you could maybe look it up in some kind of book or something. But we're seeing this HBCU thing pushed. On every week, every Thursday night, depending on where you are, 7 o'clock where I am, 8 o'clock somewhere else, depending on where you are, right? And then, so that's one. Then the extension of that obviously is the show, and we talked about this a little before, but I think it. And George, you said I wanted to be wherever that was. I wanted to experience that. So the surge, I think, there's a line. It's a clear line. The surge in applications. Application count went up. A number of individuals attending went up.
Absolutely. And even like, I mean, then later on, you got people co-signing. You got Martin co-signing with the
Come on,
Sweats.
bro.
So like he's constantly
Huge.
wearing. So it's like,
Huge.
I mean, that's the thing to do. Like, of course we're gonna go to. I mean, which one you going to? You know what I mean?
Or at least,
and even to the point of there not being the internet, right? You're not just like Amazoning a sweatshirt or just grabbing, like you actually, now that you want to be a part of that, you actually have to sign up for the tour and go and patronize the bookstore, right? And even if you weren't going to an HBCU, because I mean, obviously the enduring legacy exists within this quadrant that we're in right now in our families. But even if you weren't going to an HBCU, if you went somewhere else, the Black Student Union was reflective of that culture. Greek life was reflective of that culture. Like there was so much about Black education and the forward thinkingness of it that was amplified in that, like you said, Joe, that fine period of time. Because we said School Daze is like winter '88, and then A Different World.
A Different World is fall '87.
Like, and they probably both shot around the same time, right? They probably went straight from School Daze to Different World.
They did. They had to. So it's interesting. So I'm going to pivot real quick because we have two members of this quadrant who are proud members of National Panhellenic Council fraternities. Yes, in Kyle Yaldell and George Peters. When you saw the depiction, okay. So obviously, when you first saw the film, you were the film and the television show, because when Ron pledged Kappa Lambda Nu, that was a big deal.
Huge.
Ron and Dwayne at first. Ron and Dwayne.
Dwayne too, right? Yeah, come on.
That was a very big, a very big deal. And and I love the writing and how they did that. They led us to believe this had been going on for some time, and this was they were in the thick of it right here. So looking back at it now, or in your remembrances of it. Was it I don't want to say realistic, was it a nicely drawn story? And the reason I'm asking is because Debbie Allen is in a sorority that she pledged at Howard University, and obviously you're right, they're writing it for a variety of audiences. So, and I'm just wondering how not realistic, but how do you think they painted that with that brush?
I'll say School Daze was a little bit more realistic and A Different World in that sense, especially because the Greek consultant for School Daze is a member of my chapter. So like there's certain parts of that film that are like, I found, I mean, not so much in my era, but like somewhat realistic. I think that it did the scheduling. I think it was cool as far as showing some glimpses, but like not showing everything. And also they were all above ground. And when I say that, like they was, it was lining up in order out in the cafeteria and things of that nature. Like that stuff I've talked to like older members of my fraternity about. That's something I just don't or have no concept of. But based on that, School Daze was much more realistic than like A Different World, where you kind of just saw a glimpse in one episode as far as that aspect. And but it definitely kind of piqued my interest, like, what is this? And I've seen it around when I was younger. My uncle, the only other Morehouse man in my family, at least at the time, is also a member of my chapter. So I kind of was aware of some aspects of like Greek life, but School Daze kind of was a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, I wasn't. My mom, as I said before, was a Delta, a member of Delta Sigma Theta, 15 Mudwalkers, Delta Tau, Cheney University. Horrible name. But what was going on there, right? Mudwalkers, like,
yeah.
As Joe and I said, it's just on the nose.
On the nose.
But interestingly, I didn't have a lot of familiarity with fraternal organizations, right? And so I didn't really have an understanding of what was going down. I ended up pledging Kappa at Morehouse, and at the time, my chapter wasn't there. So I'm still like my first two, semesters, my first 2 years at Morehouse, I'm still riding along with that as my archetypal like pledge process with Different World. And I thought that's what it was. And in many ways it was, except we didn't have like the gamma rays helping us, keep our bricks up. That would have been really nice.
Can we talk about the gamma rays? Can we talk about the gamma rays? I'll come back to it.
I'll
come back to the gamma rays.
Yes.
That's why I brought them up. I always talk about the gamma rays. But from a fraternal standpoint, I thought for both pieces, they did a good job of entering right in the middle, right? Like obviously something that's episodic. The pledge process is going to start at 8:30 on Thursday nights. We won't see like the form of the pre-pledging. And the same thing with school days, opening scene. It's like, oh, so they've been on already, which I think is an interesting way to contextualize anything. But for the pledge process, where you have to be delicate and nuanced about how you talk about it, even back then, to your point, Scoop, above ground, I thought they did a good job of approximating it. Even when the wood is coming down, we're not getting real swings because that's a little bit.
It's a tight space.
It's a tight space. It's gruesome, all that, but we still understand what it's like, right? And I think there was enough about the way that they presented it with verisimilitude and just reality that it made us feel like we can make a decision. We weren't mad at the people who thought it was stupid and divisive, and we weren't mad at the people who were like, I can still be a part of this and be a revolutionary. Like even when Rachel wants to pledge, like even watching people sort of straddle the line there, it was incredible the way it was presented with like fairness, to be honest. I thought it was really fairly presented.
Yeah. Right. Even to the point of Samuel Jackson's character, like nowadays he's sitting there like, I told y'all motherfuckers.
Hey, it is interesting you say that. That's the first thing they shot. That was the first scene they shot. Yeah.
On a terribly overcast day.
Yeah, terribly overcast day on Cascade Road. No, actually it was Abernathy.
Wait, where was that? It was KFC?
It was KFC Abernathy.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, right?
From the Kroger City Center. It's gone now. They built like a dialysis place next door.
Oh, the Vita Cafe?
Hey Joe.
Yeah,
it's right next to the China Cafe.
Okay.
Hey, shout out to the cashier because I'm sure she really worked there.
Dowie Bow Wow. Dowie Bow Wow.
Oh my God!
I was there 2 weeks ago. She's gone. She's not there. Next time I go, I'm FaceTiming everyone.
Please, man. God bless.
I might go tomorrow.
Extra gray sauce.
$3.25 for the rice and the wings.
I can find that.
Like this big though. They're like that big.
Yeah, they're
egg rolls.
Animal that is.
Love. But
it got us here though. It got us here.
It did.
It sustained us.
Yeah.
It sustained it. $3.25.
It's an enduring legacy. It's an enduring legacy.
It is an enduring legacy. So back to that enduring legacy. It's interesting though that you mentioned Jamal. I love the fact that you mentioned Sam's character as one of the local yokels, and that's what it's spike writing it. So local yokels. So in a different world, there wasn't a lot of town gown, conversations outside of there's one episode where the guy Rene who owned the barbecue spot, and he then they closed down, and then he had hard times later on, and they kind of brought it up later, but a different world I thought was outstanding at bringing up issues from AIDS. I mean it's late 80s early 90s. And doing a nice little arc there with Tisha Campbell.
Shout out to Tisha Campbell.
Another connection there.
Right, there you go. Right.
Yeah. Doing a nice little arc with her, but AIDS, pregnancy, Kim Reese first year. Good. Did she have an arc?
Biology major.
Shooting, like I said, pledging.
Racism.
Rape. They were going to give it to you for real. So as a writer, Jamal and George, and of course Scoop, but when you're writing scripts and you're trying to tell a story on that narrative, how do you think, or how deftly do you think they straddle those lines in presenting this to flyover states and places all over the place? You know what I'm saying, particularly on a different world.
Well, I mean, I will say this. I mean, I don't know the discussions they had. But I mean, I was telling George earlier. I mean, the authenticity of it, and what they were talking about is what I think that's what made it age so well. Yeah. Like these real issues that they're talking about at the end of the day, where people are actually coming to each other. You know what I mean? Like actually, we're talking about like these students can come to a father figure type, and the same with the women. Like there was this bond and this interaction at the end of the day. and you're actually learning something or something that you went through, like, or these bold topics. I mean, which makes it you able to go back and look at it again and go, okay, I mean, this works and it still looks good because, you know, I mean, the human condition, this shit don't change. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. So, I mean, it's just, you know, take your turn, you know, pick a topic.
No, I completely agree. I think, you know, and you know, when you're writing something that you want to have, like, again, an enduring legacy or lasting impact versus what's in the zeitgeist right then, you know, you'd have to decide whether or not you want to be a time capsule and be as specific about the issue right then, or do you think it's going to be something that will last? Like, do you open up your film talking about divesting from South Africa so specifically? Yeah, you do. You know what I mean? Because at the time, to figure out, it actually helps to layer the story to figure out the fact that these students are not, again, monoliths, right? That there are different narratives happening at once, which was the brilliance of both of these shows, this film and this show, is seeing that there were layers, that there were different experiences that everyone was going through. And to Jamal's point, right, in terms of those subjects for a different world anyway, that aged well. I mean, we're all not too far out of school, and we all dealt with a lot of those same issues. And truth be told, for some of us who hadn't dealt with them with that community before, we probably referenced the 30-minute, the 23-minute way in which they handled it for at least some advice on how to navigate it, right?
Yeah.
But when you go back to school days, even those things, those elements, which I won't speak about, that did not necessarily age well, that kind of were cringeworthy, they still helped you navigate it, because at least there was an example of, you know, how to handle, how to respond to those things differently, or that, or maturing around some of those topics, right? But they were addressed, though. They didn't tiptoe around them.
No.
And this is, like, as you said, Joe, flyover states. This is NBC. This is, you know, a major pick. This is a $7 million budget. Like, this is a studio film. Like, it was attacked. And
they had 3 and they made 9.
Come on, bro.
That? They had 3 and they made 9. They made this film with 250. Okay.
That's,
they made like.
Right.
And School Days was what? It was February, so that the film is in Aquarius, actually.
So School Days budget was $3 million?
I think it was like 3.
Okay.
It was like 2 something or 3. It's just, I mean, but it made like 9.
He made it work
in the theater.
What?
In the theater.
So that's what he was bankable.
Is this limited release? Like, how? Like, where are we? Are we in Detroit?
It was in Dallas. It was in Dallas.
Motown, baby.
So let me jump real quick.
Your monkey ass
I like
Africa.
If you want to. So,
oh man,
I'm trying not to infuse too much of my what I mentioned on my podcast, the Open Tabs podcast. Shout out to Calvin Smith.
I need to go grab it. That should have been the required reading or listening.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. I'll come with a book list here, with a required reading list. But it's interesting that y'all mention those things, those little authenticity things, I think, in the script, because I was talking to Scoop about the film a week or two ago, and Kadeem Hardison, and the reason I'm gonna bring him up is because he's a part of both. You know, obviously he's Dwayne Wayne, so he's top of the mountain. Hey, he was the man. He was the man. There was a time in Hollywood when he was the driving force of a top 5 television show. Okay, while George Herbert Walker Bush was president. Okay, when he was first one out the gate on Thursday night. Okay, all right. At the time we stopped watching the show that came on before it, we started.
Let's be honest.
Come on, let's be honest.
After
a while, it got a little whatever.
But you can come in late.
Yeah, it's cool.
Too. There's a couple of things we had to skip. Some classes you don't have to go to.
No.
Sign me in.
God bless. God.
Swipe me.
Swipe me. Crown Forum style.
Physical science.
Yeah.
Crown Forum. Shoot. Okay. Anyway, Kadeem was at the top, but he was also in the other film, and he was in School Days as the New York guy, and which we know to be true. That's a thing. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because you all were saying, someone was saying they'd never seen these things portrayed obviously on film before, but there wasn't a lot of concern about money. Now, granted, you had different socioeconomic levels, like at an HBCU, but you had some. If you read the script,
I need to read it.
which is in Uplift the Race, which is now I'm told is very difficult to find that book. But
I have it
no,
somewhere.
Jane, I got it somewhere. Jane,
Let me get that. Let me get a drive-by on that.
Jane comes from money. Deanberg brother Mike T comes from money. Yeah, James Toussaint, exactly. And so they don't really, of all the issues they talk about, socioeconomic level isn't really one, except for that one scene when Eric Payne says, I'm the first in my family to go to college.
Right.
But still, that doesn't mean that he's not coming from a comfortable situation.
Right.
Okay. So it's interesting that in a different world, they had Jasmine, like Kadeem and Jasmine were supposedly Dwayne and Whitley, supposedly so diametrically opposed from polar opposites, economically, but somehow it worked out, which I think is a greater storyline about Black college life.
Yes.
And you got just people coming from different walks of life and coming together and making it work. They're at that school. So I thought that was really authentic.
I would add to that as far as it's even more authentic with Kim Reese and Whitley being roommates, and you seeing that in the same room, like the very first scene you see Kim is her arguing about this is my bed because my mother, grandmother, great grandmother stayed in this bed. Right. That alone is the first and she's like, I want to be a doctor, and she's like, I don't want to see the human body when I wake up in the morning. And you're like, you come from like the privilege of that conversation. I already told
like my mom's a bookkeeper, my dad was a cop. Like I'm gonna for real.
I don't even know what a bookkeeper is. I don't know what is a
I have books. I'm a bookkeeper too.
I'm a bookkeeper. So it was just like right then and there, you see it, and they end up being, very close friends, but like in the room.
Maid of honor.
Yeah, in the room, in the hall that's named after,
she's living in the hall named
after.
In the
Gilbert Hall, it's that alone just is like right then and there smacks you in the face with that level. But you're right, they don't delve into it in a place of like you're poor, I'm rich. I mean, Whitley shades a lot of people. I started watching Different World again over this quarantine, and I give you a whole different context of it now as I'm older. But you see it, but you don't see it on like you're poor, you're this. But I do remember like Kim, we're talking about divesting in South Africa. Kim gave up the scholarship because the company was heavily invested in South Africa. Like that's really heavy to think about. Like now as I get
20
older,
years old.
I'm getting older. I'm like, my mama would kill me if I had,
hide some of it.
Black Panther pizza. Hey, Jamal, Black Panther pizza. We eat pizza. Okay. We taking that. We taking that one.
Yeah. But that's interesting about like I think even in both scenarios, like the TV show and the movie, it's like money wasn't the end all goal for either. I mean that's a niche. You got Whitley. She's rich or whatever. But it's like it's kind of like she's kind of annoying. You know what I mean? And the same thing you got with Jane. And and our guy, Big Brother Almighty, it's like they come nice, but then they're also it's like it's like we're more after truth, we're more after happiness, we're more after love, but that money shit is just not. It's switched.
Which I really like because even the circumstances that became crucial to them, to both of your points, again, weren't financial, but they were really serious and required your focus in a way where money couldn't solve them, right? Joe and I talked about this recently, man, like even in the same pledge scene, right, where out of nowhere, Robert Guinevere Smith produces $5. And I said, okay, so you were online in the fall, like during homecoming, and you had $5 like, that was unaccounted for? Like, how did you do that, right? But it's those little nuanced things that because they needed it for the gag, we didn't deal with how broke they were, or them like having to steal to pledge or any of those kind of crazy things, right? But everybody, going back to Different World, also had their nuance that made you realize whether it was clothes, whether it was language, who they were. And I love that both pieces kind of touched on that. I think often about coming into Morehouse and walking down Whitehall and like hearing some cats playing music that I'd never heard before, but also playing Miles and knowing some cats had never heard that. And some cats could tie bow ties because they'd been to the Botillion and some cats hadn't. But like everybody was actually teaching each other in that one space. You think about Branford, who had like the the Razorback hat on, right? Like this is a pride-filled kind of like combination. We're at Mission College,
and I knew it though. I knew what that Razorback. Cause I'm from Dallas. I knew what that Razorback hat was, but it was so weird.
But it's also beautiful that them Alabama boys, them Arkansas boys, all of them, like they bring their culture with them. Even though
and he had his sax.
He had a little baby.
And he had his strap on. He had his strap on like the whole time. But to your point, that did bring. They had far more exposition, by the way. That group.
Oh my gosh,
had far more exposition than the Gammas did. But I love how you just said that, because if you think about it, they all had their own thing, I guess, and that's what college life is. And these are just celebrations of college life. And Jamal, you mentioned something earlier talking about the older figure, the Walter Oakes, the Letty, I can't think of what my sister's name is. Oh gosh, but the Mr.
James, Stevie.
Yeah, Stevie. Thank you. I was gonna say Stevie. That's what I want to say. Stevie. Hey, early on too.
Hey.
Early. Loretta Devine.
hey, Loretta Devine. Yo, I was like first season. I'm like, Loretta, what's up?
Yeah. Hey, Loretta Devine. Early. That was Dream Girl.
Loretta Devine.
Yeah, and then we can't even talk about that right now. Let's keep it moving. But you already know.
And I know you. Okay, and I appreciate that. But I'm just saying, like, they had these older, these figures that were there that could help them walk through it. And Glenn Turman as well. I forgot Curlin Taylor.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah.
As well, which oddly became like he was the older thing. Then as soon as Dwayne graduates, this is my little writing flaw thing. Then all of a sudden they're boys, like they're buddies. It was kind of. But so as working at a college now, I understand how that it works. And then they graduate and they're like still your folk, they're your people. You know what I'm saying? But there is always a fine line of respect. And I think that in definitely in the different world script and in the storyline.
But Joe, can I jump in and say this? Again, back to the enduring legacy and the way these things age, right?
Get to the ladies.
The most I'm there with you. I could flip that page. But like the thing I really appreciated about particularly A Different World was as the seasons, and I'm talking about 1 through 5 because 6 was 6. But as the seasons went on, seeing that those who used to be freshmen now were ascending to positions of leadership, right?
Yeah.
And that they were sticking around, whether they were teaching or being, RAs or RDs, or whether they were being advisors or mentors.
Or going to new schools that we didn't know existed at the school.
We didn't know existed, right?
Right.
And as this new crop of freshmen comes in and the Cree Summers and everybody come in, seeing that there was a way to graduate to that next echelon, but still remain a part of that community, was just huge because, again, you're dealing with the resurgence of HBCUs where a lot of our parents went, and maybe we knew, maybe we went to a homecoming, but it wasn't talked about in the same way. It was like, yeah, that was then, we did that, and then we went on, and now we're doing this life here. But to see that continuing education and that continuing fostering of community really rounded out the HBCU experience in the way that we now know it, right? Where it was prompting and promoting you to give back, to stay involved, to tout your experience, to really, really continue to glean from that community and pour back into that community. That was brilliant to make sure that those characters had full experiences that you could ascend to and aspire to.
Right. You knew they had the goods to give that information. And it's a smart way to keep the shout out to the writers, a smart way to keep them, like you're saying, in there without having to be a flunky or whatnot. Let Ron.
You think it's Screech?
Right. Ron always just hangs around. Screech. Wow. Screech should have there. Exactly. Perfect. Like what are you doing?
High school.
Why are you still here?
They just kept him around. They just kept him around. I mean,
we got no story.
But to your point about Ron, that's why season 6. I mean, God bless him. I mean, that was the one. You just get the late career contract.
Man, pay that house off.
Hey, man, gotta pay the house off.
They had the Lamborghini supposedly too.
Right, we got all this advertising money sitting here. They go give it to us.
Yeah, they were kings.
Mercedes, but all they were kings.
NBC, run that one more time, huh?
Yeah, let's just get it.
Which is probably why they went so far politically. Like, we're just gonna. What are they gonna do? Pull the plug? I mean, they got to do something with the time.
Yeah, we're done.
And so they start with the LA riots.
Yeah, they did.
The honeymoon.
They did.
I posit, and I'm probably alone on this. You could stop after the wedding. After the wedding, we could.
No, we don't need to.
Yeah.
Their home life was kind of painful to watch. I'm not gonna lie. It was just every time that door opened, and they walked in from that like living single vestibule.
Before Living Single, a year before
Living Single, like it was just like what it yeah.
And then Ron is living down in the Cosby Show, the Huxtable basement. I mean, and then they have a Lost episode, Scoop. I think we talked about this with Billy D. Williams, where it seemed like they were trying it out with the new kids to see if the new kids could take it to the next level. To carry it, and like there was no Dwayne, no Whitley, no Ron, and they had Leslie Uggams come in and shout out to the cameos, by the way. They just had amazing.
I was like, that's when they started pulling everybody in. Pac came in.
Yeah,
that's when
Chris Cross came in.
Chris Cross, Pac, with the great Bumper Robinson.
Robinson,
the celibate freshman.
Yeah. Who still had the balls to punch Pac in his mouth.
Yeah. Hey, brother, on or off camera, that's
a real thing.
Stones. That is some stone. Congratulations to Bumper Robinson for that. I know we're coming up. I know we got hard times here, hard stop times. One is going super shout out to the ladies in all these shows and these shows and these movies in this movie, because some very amazing performances, amazing writing for them. My favorites are Rachel from School Days, because she calls Depp out she constantly calls Depp out. Mm-hmm. And won't let him let up. That she's like, no. I love you. I care about you. I want you to be this. You need to understand you're wrong.
She also kisses that bottom lip too. Yeah. That soup cooler. Don't act like. Hey.
And I don't know if it works with Phyllis and Von Stickney. I don't know if it works with Phyllis and Vanessa, but definitely with Kime. And that's how I'm gonna pronounce it, because I don't know any other way to pronounce it.
I have no idea. Yeah.
She's a one-namer. But also love to the Gamma Rays.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Can we give a shout out to her?
Go. Paula? Miriam? Go ahead. Miriam, why are you always complaining?
She is such a pain in the ass. Shout out to Miriam.
She called him trifling, tired, trifling, and shiftless in a sentence. If a black woman calls you all three of those,
shiftless is definitely the knife in the ribs, like the shiftless. Oh man,
immovable.
Trifling, shiftless Negroes from day one. I refuse to clean up.
I mean, when they start using slave terminology, nigga.
And Jamal, the way that they shot that meeting, what was this on? Like just the way we just floated with a slightly dirty shot around.
They were early. It was early. They had a lot of toys. I
was in there.
Well, we were in the meeting.
Yeah, we were in the meeting.
We were
handheld too, right? We were handheld in there, weren't we?
Had to be.
Mm-hmm. Had to be. And it was weird because sometimes you saw
little tough
saw the hair.
Yeah.
And sometimes you didn't see the hair. And then for some reason, of course, for no other reason other than just Spike just being Spike, T-shirt Jane has the red sweater on. So I'm a
little higher.
I'm a little higher. And my posture's great.
Yeah.
But I'm running this show.
Pencil eraser hair. Like I'm colored up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to shout out to the ladies, and please go ahead. Shout out to the. I know it's Miriam.
Because ultimately, man, it's a guy's movie. You know what I mean? Like it's through a guy's eyes, and like different worlds can be argued like through a woman's eyes. At least in
definitely, it became.
In the first season, there was no guys in the show. You know what I mean? But I mean, it was. But so yeah, I'd say like the Gamma Rays weren't given a lot to work with. You know what I mean? Or any of the women, but they did their thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, I appreciate the women of School Days a great deal. I think it made it really easy for us to see lines that were drawn. Mm-hmm. Even down to the opening montage, like you could just see like where we were going. So I really, really appreciate that. But A Different World, I mean, obviously we spent more time with these individuals and we watched them grow. And that to me, the matriculation of the college woman, the maturity, like the evolution, to watch how over the years, like when Freddie started showing up with a suit on and I was like, wait a minute, with the
look back. Dark and Lovely. What Ron said, it wasn't a little Dark and Lovely could do for us. He said something
like I really appreciated how they evolved, and they went through their struggles, and they went through, they chastised each other necessarily. But watching how, like electrons, the dudes floated around them and their priorities and their prerogative going into like early to mid 90s, I think that was again, as a father of a daughter now, I'm thinking in this way, like
very strong.
I think that was really strong and really important. Shout out to Debbie Allen for really pushing what you pushed there. I thought it was real strong.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just want to say that.
Yeah, I was gonna say the different world. I used to be real hard on Kim Reese because she was kind of preachy. But as I went back, just like Scoop, like we talked about this, I went back.
Willie is my least redeemable character ever watching it again. But she matured, but they almost
it was like a slow hanging curveball. It came in late.
Yeah.
It came in late and it went down. But at first I was anti Kim Reese, and then as I watched it again, I was like, nah, Kim's all right.
Kim was solid. Kim was
really
solid.
Definitely. But I have a love for Freddie that I didn't have maybe when I was younger. I have a love for Freddie, who went through so much. They did so much like freshmen.
They did a lot.
They learned and you said it. I think you said evolved or whatever.
Yeah, I mean that's a testament.
We got it on tape. So whatever you said, we got it.
That's a testament not only to the writers but to the performances, right? Because if you think about that first year, those that they dropped, right? Like we never saw Millie again, who could have had a beautiful evolution. We didn't see Kim Wayans again, who would have been a very interesting revolution.
I wish Millie had stayed.
That's what I'm saying. Like there were characters.
Three Summers end up doing Millie. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I guess to a certain extent, she kind of did, huh?
Yeah, but Whitley never. Because remember, Millie was just lived to be. She was like a number 2 for Whitley. Cree was kind of Kim kind of became a number 2 for Whitley in her own way, but still stood up for herself. But we know people like that. Yes. We know social cliques, and they're just a group of people at the college.
Yes,
they're not the whole college,
right? And honestly, for a lot of the number 2s and number 3s, particularly as it pertains to like, and I hate to even classify women in this way, but like in terms of their own hierarchical decision making and being in a clique, like a lot of times it was like, yo, there's an empty seat on this bus. Like you're going, I'm just going to go. Like I'm going to wear what you're wearing. I'm going to be a part of this clique. I'm going to be one of the Detroit girls. I'm going to be one of the, Cali girls or whatever the case might have been. Right. These are real situations, to be honest.
Shout out.
I'm just going to ride. I'm going to ride with the team and that'll be the identity. And that happened in school.
Yeah.
It did. And no, Scoop, you're gonna say something. I'm sorry.
No, just like you said, like when I look at like from the lens of just recently seeing like looking at Whitley and she was kind of doing her own thing, but eventually she did mature where all the jabs she was giving to Freddie and to Kim, they kind of were still like comfortable in themselves. Like I'm not really listening to her enough. They didn't have that. They didn't have that click as far as that aspect, but they all ended up being like close and just being, and you see that too, where it's like we're become friends because of proximity. Mm-hmm. And then we actually become friends. Mm-hmm. And I'm still dealing with your BS, even though, but I still love you. Like Kim's father, not passed away, but got shot as a cop.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and they all went, even though, Willie's complaining about hospital temperature and food, you know what I'm saying? They still, you see that despite the differences in their personality, they still were there for each other.
Yeah. And
that was definitely very accurate to my college experience. People that you never would have thought you'd be friends with if you looked at like, oh, this person from this city, this city, realize y'all are entwined, they're quiet, I'm loud, or vice versa. And that friendship really sparking after just being there.
There would have been a lot more sex if that thing was booted up right now. Like,
that's my last question. That was my last question for everybody. That was my last question.
Yeah.
No, George, you said it. So keep going with that thought. Keep going.
Because we talk about the things that were absent, right? And necessarily money wasn't really as big a deal because we still appreciated the socioeconomic things. We saw the evolution that was either from pledging or whatever you were dealing with familially, right? But we didn't see a whole lot of entanglement, and we didn't see how sex, in the way that it became, it was an unspoken.
It was unspoken, yeah.
Right, you know what I'm saying? But in like a specifically like targeted, and even with the repercussions that come out of that activity, right? The things that could have happened in that way, like sex, I think would have been. You look at what's happening on network TV right now. Like, they're having sex, right? And to see, honestly, because that was on the cutting edge then, to see young Black college students taking hold of their sex and their non-binary options and their sexuality,
right,
and experiencing what gender polarities don't look like anymore, all those kinds of things. I think all of that as a part of the discussion now would be as forefronted as some of the discussions they were having then, that would further help current students enrolling deal with some of those issues, because they would have had an example in these characters in these stories.
And we see that on the shows, in many of the shows, obviously that are written, I guess, for this demographic,
like Grownish.
now. And so that was my question. Do you think, how would it look? How would the movie look today? And how would the television show look today?
The movie, I'll say from a movie perspective, it's similar, but like darker is like Burning Sands.
Yeah,
with School Day, like it's very much the Greek aspect, which is not all what School Days was, but like you start to see like going into the deeper end. Because I think nowadays it's stuff like this would be darker. Even like how Fresh Prince, there was a video years ago, the reboot. Now it's the actual reboot. With like, who would have thought of a darker version of Fresh Prince, right? And seeing free Meek Mill T-shirts, and it's it's like, who would have thought? But that's how our media, our film, TV are now. They go like a little deeper. You pretty much different world. The close thing to it is Grownish, where you see like they're having sex. You see her roommate is bisexual. You see the differences of being black. Now it's not HBCU, but you've seen black kids in college dealing with real things. They're doing drugs, which
I was gonna say, and drugs. Different worlds have a little bit more euphoria to it.
Yeah, because they're potheads on Grownish. A couple of them. Yeah.
All they did on in either of those other movies was drink. I don't think they even.
Nah, they didn't really drink like that. I mean, they did. Because Walter Oates came and they spiked punches. Yeah, they spiked punches.
Threw the match in it.
It lit up. Yeah.
Remember that? Wow.
Yep. And Freddie was stumbling around and like,
Now, but I'm saying, even to your point that how Different Worlds in the forefront for its time, I definitely probably would have tackled a lot of these issues now. I mean, going in.
Yeah. I mean, I think they would have been. They couldn't have helped it. They couldn't. They had to do that. And I think School Days would have been a little softer on some of the things that didn't age as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just the boyish shit that we thought was funny back then. That really.
Which would have been a little different. That's all.
Yeah. So when I watched it in the Fox Theater, in 18, and Spike was there, and we at the step show, and I'm cringing because I'm getting to the spot, and I'm thinking like, no, they're not gonna. And then, but the crowd said what was on the screen.
I watched it on closed caption the last time I watched it, and I was just like, wow, that's it.
In 5 for 5, I think it was, I can't remember who wrote about it. It was Tony K. Bombara or somebody, I can't remember who wrote about it, but they were like, why is this here? Like, why did you have to go there? Why are you so afraid of, and this was written in like 92, 93. Yeah. They were like, why are you so afraid? And Spike kept the critique.
And he didn't have to
in the book.
He could have.
He kept it in the book, which I thought was a very big thing.
Side note, after going back and looking at the step show, it was like empty as hell in there. And
they had to keep moving it around. They had to keep
nobody in the cover. You know what? And then I think it's not fair because I read about it, but that step show scene just looked like a tough day.
Bro, they cut the cameras completely out. We won that step show. Pie Chapter won that step show.
And they had a fight in the middle of it.
Cut us out of the film.
Yeah. Really?
My profiles cannot stand. A bunch of my profiles have an issue with that still to this day.
Yeah, same with us. They got like suspended off that stop.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
I never heard. See, I'm learning more things, man.
Yeah,
that's the sore spot for Pie Chapter. I'm not gonna hold you.
Talk about. I don't like that scene. I don't like that scene. Y'all like it either?
I mean, we're not in it. Like from the Greek perspective, Omega's not in it. So
as a consumer, right? Like,
as a consumer,
there's a lot about that scene that does not have the unraveling that it could. I'll say that.
Also, there's no way a group of GDIs are stepping on a step show.
Impossible.
Even close to getting on the stage.
And there's no way that a new step team comes up while the old step team is still on the stage.
That would have been the fight right there.
That's the fight.
Why wait to fight?
That's the fight right there.
Why wait to fight if you're going to fight? That's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it right there.
Of all the scenes in that film,
That's the one we're on.
Unrealistic. That's very
no,
unrealistic.
but I figured that would be the most unrealistic. Unrealistic one.
And the people in the crowd got signs that say "Go fellas!" Like the fellas. These 5 little nerdy dudes got
with the Benetton shirt. The girl.
But one thing, Joe, I just want to say, like, the guys in the car when they're coming back from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Hey, baby.
Yeah. They have a moment of realization with the old cats. Then they sexually harass a girl. No, they have their moment first. They have their soft moment first, which is a great scene when Monroe's like, you guys like fucking, you guys like,
nah, you are a boy, man. You are a boy.
So we got that healing brotherhood.
And Terrence Blanchard's in the background making it easy.
And then, as soon as they hit the Spelman Lane, right back to it.
Hey,
they on Abernathy, right? They on Abernathy. I know it. The street. They on Abernathy. They come back Spelman Lane, come back through, and it's cyclone fence at the time. Now it's wrought iron, but they come through. They see a girl. Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Like it just happens.
Yeah.
Come on, bruh. But that's college though.
That's how we got here.
It is. I sincerely appreciate that. That is how we got here. I sincerely appreciate your time. I sincerely appreciate your thoughts, everything about it. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and I love you guys. And thank you so much for participating. And I know I'm richer and fuller, and I'm sure everyone else watching will be too. Thank you.
So can I just say one thing out of tradition?
Always.
Happy homecoming.
Happy homecoming.
Happy homecoming.
Happy homecoming. Happy homecoming, baby. Happy homecoming. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thank you.